The Lao Civil War, often referred to as the Secret War, is one of the most significant yet underreported conflicts in Southeast Asia during the Cold War. While neighboring Vietnam and Cambodia received much of the international attention, Laos became the stage for a covert and complex struggle involving local factions, superpowers, and regional allies. Understanding this war requires looking at the historical and geopolitical forces that shaped Laos in the mid-20th century, from the fall of the monarchy to the rise of the Pathet Lao, and the involvement of foreign powers such as the United States, North Vietnam, and the Soviet Union. After the Kingdom of Laos gained independence from France in 1953, the country faced immediate internal and external challenges. The monarchy, led by King Sisavang attempted to maintain unity through coalition governments, but Laos was deeply divided. Three main political factions emerged. The first was the royalists, who supported the king and the traditional monarchy, seeking to maintain stability while navigating foreign influence. The second was the neutralists, led by figures like Prince Souphanophoma, who advocated for a balanced approach that would keep Laos out of Cold War conflicts. The third faction was the Pathet Lao, a communist movement aligned with North Vietnam, advocating for radical social and political change. The Pathet Lao traced its origins to the communist-inspired movements that had gained strength during French colonial rule. By the late 1940s, they had begun organizing guerrilla resistance against both the French and the Lao royal government. With the support of North Vietnam, which saw Laos as strategically vital for supply routes and regional influence, the Pathet Lao gained access to training, weapons, and logistical networks. This created an imbalance that would define the conflict for decades. The early years of the Civil War were marked by political maneuvering, brief coalitions, and frequent instability. The royalist government tried to incorporate neutralists and moderate Pathet Lao members into formal governance structures, but trust between the factions was limited. Sporadic fighting broke out in rural areas, especially along the borders with North Vietnam and Thailand, where control of territory was contested. This period saw the emergence of guerrilla warfare tactics, with small units of the Pathet Lao conducting raids and ambushes against government forces, while the monarchy relied on a combination of Royal Army units and support from the United States. The United States became deeply involved in Laos during the 1960s, driven by the broader strategy of containing communism in Southeast Asia. American intelligence agencies, particularly the CIA, coordinated with the royal government to train, equip, and support local anti-communist forces. This included both conventional military units and irregular groups, often referred to as hill tribe armies, drawn from ethnic minorities in the mountains. These forces were crucial in fighting the Pathet Lao, especially in the northern and eastern provinces. The conflict in Laos became increasingly entangled with the Vietnam War. The Pathet Lao, backed by North Vietnam, used Laos as a corridor for the Ho Chi Minh Trail, a network of roads and paths that supplied communist forces in South Vietnam. This made Laos a key strategic location, even though the country was officially neutral under international agreements. As a result, Laos experienced heavy bombardment from U.S. forces targeting the trail and Pathet Lao positions. By some estimates, Laos became the most heavily bombed country per capita in history, with millions of tons of ordnance dropped between 1964 and 1973. Civilian populations suffered greatly, facing displacement, injury, and death as villages were caught in the crossfire. Throughout the Civil War, the monarchy continued to try and maintain political legitimacy. King Sisavang, though largely symbolic in his power, was respected by many Lao people and sought to encourage negotiation and compromise. Prime Minister Souphanophoma pursued a policy of neutrality and coalition governance, attempting to balance foreign influence and domestic pressures. His cousin, Prince Souphanophoma, led the Pathet Lao and became the main adversary in the struggle for power. The dynamic between these two cousins epitomized the broader conflict, familial and cultural ties juxtaposed with deep ideological divides. By the late 1960s, the war intensified. Both sides consolidated their territories and strengthened alliances. The Pathet Lao established parallel administrations in areas under their control, implementing social and political reforms to gain support from local populations. Meanwhile, royalist forces, heavily dependent on U.S. aid, sought to defend the strategic towns and routes, particularly near the Mekong River. The geography of Laos, with its rugged mountains and dense forests, made large-scale military operations difficult and prolonged the conflict, allowing guerrilla tactics to be highly effective. Diplomatic efforts were ongoing throughout the war. Multiple agreements were attempted to establish ceasefires and coalition governments, but they were often fragile and short-lived. The most notable was the 1973 Vientiane Agreement, which called for a ceasefire and the formation of a coalition government. Although the agreement temporarily reduced violence in some areas, it failed to resolve the underlying tensions between the factions. The balance of power continued to favor the Pathet Lao, which had gained control of key territories and benefited from ongoing support from North Vietnam. The final phase of the Civil War came in 1975, as the Pathet Lao steadily advanced toward Vientiane, the capital. The fall of South Vietnam and Cambodia to communist forces dramatically shifted regional dynamics. With the United States withdrawing from Southeast Asia and North Vietnam consolidating power, the Pathet Lao had both the political and military advantage. By December 2, 1975, the Pathet Lao declared the Lao People's Democratic Republic, formally ending the monarchy and completing their victory. King Sisavang was forced to abdicate, and the royal family was sent to re-education camps, where they would not return to public life. The consequences of the Civil War were profound. Millions of Lao people were displaced, the countryside had been devastated by warfare and bombing, and unexploded ordnance remained a significant hazard for decades. The monarchy was abolished, and the Pathet Lao established a one-party socialist state aligned with Vietnam and the Soviet Union. The legacy of the Civil War continues to shape Laos today, influencing politics, development, and regional relationships. The Lao Civil War is often called the Secret War because much of the international community was unaware of the full extent of U.S. involvement and the scale of the conflict. It is also a story of how a small, landlocked nation became a crucial chessboard in global Cold War strategies. Understanding this war is essential for anyone seeking to grasp the complexities of modern Laos and its historical trajectory. Even today, travelers to Laos can see the marks of this turbulent period. Rural villages in eastern provinces still deal with unexploded ordnance, and memorials commemorate those who fought and died. Museums in Vientiane and elsewhere preserve artifacts and documents, ensuring that this critical period of Lao history is not forgotten. The Lao Civil War demonstrates how local conflicts can be amplified by global tensions. It was a struggle not just for territory or ideology, but for the identity and future of a nation. The Secret War shaped the borders, politics, and society of modern Laos, leaving a legacy that continues to influence the country and its people more than 4 decades later. Thanks for watching. Have you ever visited Laos?